Hey, hi everyone. This is Anurag, your guest. I'm back again, once again, with my new guest, Lindsey Ogan. Hey, Lindsey.
Hello.
Hi. I'll do a quick introduction about Lindsey. I don't know if I'll do justice to that, but since I usually introduce people, I'll do the same for Lindsey. So, who is Lindsey? She is Chief Marketing Officer, CMO, everyone, right? For Stride Bank. Stride Bank is the banking engine behind iconic brands such as DoorDash, Chime, Lyft, Stash. The list continues. She has close to a decade of experience, more than a decade of experience specifically in growth marketing, and her focus or specialty area is revenue optimization. Right? One quick point I want to add: a glory, a feather in the cap. Lindsay's already smiling on that. Okay, that's okay. So she was named among the top 15 most powerful women leaders in banking under 40 in 2021. So a small clap for that email.
Snaps for.
I leave the stage for Lindsay. I don't know if I did a justice with the introduction. So if I have done, then you might just tell my audience that it's okay.
That was a beautiful introduction, and I think I should just bring you into every room I enter into so that you can just you can lay that out there for them before I go in. The only thing I would add is that I took ballroom dancing in college, and after my second year, because I took the advanced class, I am also the 2011 University of Oklahoma Ballroom Dancing Miss Elegance. So that's probably my biggest feather, proudest achievement. but other than that, you crushed it. I appreciate you, man.
That's more interesting than your banking career. Definitely,
You
that's way more
know,
interesting.
it's in the banking circles. It's not something you see a lot.
That's the reason exactly. Okay, I'll start with one quick question. What keeps you going?
What keeps me going? Caffeine. No,
I'm like, okay.
and nacho Doritos. No, in seriousness, I think the thing that motivates me every day is learning. And I'm at this great bank Stride that you mentioned before, and this is a whole new world for me, being in kind of the fintech and payments space, and I have been more excited and engaged and have worked harder at this institution than I ever have in my life because I love the fact that everything I get involved in every day. Even though I come in and I'm completely incompetent, I leave just a slightly little bit more competent. And I love that feeling. I love the feeling of knowing more than I knew yesterday and being a little bit better than I was the day before. And then the excitement of showing up and knowing that, I'll work hard today and we'll have challenges and we'll have successes. But at the end of the day, I will more than likely look back and have learned something. And so that's usually what it is.
That sounds interesting. So that essentially keeps you going. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll take a note. Good.
I did good so far.
Fine.
One for one.
Not bad, yeah. So let me harp on again, that feather on your cap about being named as a top 15 most influential or powerful women in banking by American Banker. Right? So how do you envision to continue adding value to the ecosystem, right? I mean, you're a person who's outspoken. You write very frequently across financial brand, across other portals, across other mouthpieces. You go to webinars. Proponent of strongly using digital AI for betterment of banking, betterment of consumers, right? So how do you plan to continue adding value in the ecosystem?
I think the kind of the position I've found myself in, or the voice that I've found for myself, I feel, in the space is one of, I'll say, accessibility. That I have this strong belief, and if you read about it in the financial brand, I think kind of the undergirding
Yep.
feeling of that was just because I'm in marketing, just because I'm not a technological specialist, doesn't mean that I can't participate in this conversation, and doesn't mean that my opinions aren't valuable. And it kind of allows other people to toy with this idea that If you enter into a conversation with the knowledge that you have and the humility and the respect for other people that know things that you don't know, that those are some of the best conversations, and that you might find that your perspective creates more value than you realize. And so that's kind of how I ended up. That financial brand article started as an email about somebody that was like, "What do you think about, stuff in customer journey?" And I was like, "I don't know, this AI stuff sounds pretty crazy," and ended up writing this email and forwarding it to a friend that works at the financial brand, and she was like, "If you add 3 paragraphs to this, we'll print it." And I was like, "Oh my goodness, okay." And so I think that's the way that I feel, looking back at some of those moments, have added value and added some inspiration, is to encourage people from whatever their vantage point is, that they have something of value to contribute to the conversation, and maybe encourage them to have a little more courage to throw their hat in the ring.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a key, right? I mean, key to collaborate in things that all of us can come out as champions. Absolutely. I mean, that's the way forward. Even I look at it, right? When I partner with CMOs like you, I mean, I'm an expert in data, I'm an expert in analytics, but am I an expert in marketing per se as much as you? No, right? But again, forming that team, doing fantastic things is what matters. So yeah, that's a very well defined answer. Now, since you hinted on AI, right? It's a common term that I keep on throwing nowadays, the BI to AI shift, right? I mean, there's a lot of, I would say, still fluff that people talk about AI and generative AI without understanding basics of BI, right? Community financial institutions should talk about BI first and then talk about AI. So, since you're very vocal about AI and possibilities of generative AI, right? So, how do you think, I would say specifically, community financial institutions should harness or leverage AI, be it predictive AI, be it generative AI, to go and, I would say, run their business better, improve customer experiences better, be
Yeah.
more competitive in the ecosystem?
Yeah, no, I think, I mean, it's such an interesting conversation, and my perspective, and kind of the conversations I've had with people in my circle is more of an orientation around data in a timeline, which is a sentence that makes no sense, but I'll try to like explain it a little bit more. But whenever I think about prior to generative AI, and we had BI, and we had intelligence, and we had analytics, and we had all these things at our disposal. We're sitting at this point in time, and we're looking backwards, and we're trying to make sense of it, and we're trying to make sense of where we are, and it's almost like a compass, or like a "you are here" mall map,
Yes.
and we used data to look backwards, to contextualize where we currently are, what's actually going on, looking at trends and trying to gain insights from looking backwards. But then the introduction of generative AI and being able to take this data and make it more accessible for institutions, and especially community institutions that don't have like high level IT data analyst types of roles typically, but to then orient ourselves to the future and then be able to use it to forecast, to go, not only am I going to use data now to tell me where I am and have a clear picture of what's going on in my business, but now I'm going to use data and the questions we need to start asking of our data teams and of our mechanisms that measure this is what is going to happen based on what has happened and what we've learned, and all of the surrounding information that is, that it's able to digest. Then we as leaders of these institutions need to stop asking questions that are backwards, but asking questions that are forwards, to go, how can we use this to help me predict what comes next?
Yes.
And I think that orientation, that's the most important shift to me, because what you find is that, especially at a leadership level at a bank, it's your data is only good as the questions you ask it, and and your insights are only as good as the questions you ask. And so making sure that the leadership understands that, we could do, and this is the Swiss Army knife of technology. And so when you can do anything, it's even more important to have clarity about the business objective and the strategic vision, and to ask it the right questions. Because when you can ask any question, then it becomes that much more critical to make sure you're asking the right questions, and the questions that are going to, propel you into some kind of competitive advantage. And I think, from my perspective, that shift from past to future is where people have to look.
Absolutely. I mean, to add to your point exactly. I mean, I strongly believe that generative AI might change community financial institutions. I was just thinking about a couple of use cases. One is all community financial institutions are struggling with core conversion, right? I mean, 56% of community financial institutions want to go and shop around for a new core, maybe a headless core or a old. I mean, I would say be a headless core or a cloud native core, doesn't matter, but still you want to go and change your core, become more smarter.
Yep.
So
Yep.
the journey from your legacy core to a new core, the code base that you have, right? I mean, there's a language called COBOL. So things are written still in COBOL or in mainframe, right? Now finding those talent to go and change those set of codes and pieces to a
Yep.
new platform, it becomes huge problem, right? I
Yep.
think that's a very interesting use case, which I think generative AI can bring in a lot of value for community financial institutions. That's one. And second, again, since we are short with the IT talents, right? We need to
Right.
go and mine information by ourselves. So
Yep.
self-service business intelligence powered by AI is something which will make sense. I mean, just imagine a situation that you go and ask a chatbot, as simple as that.
Yeah.
How will my forecast look like? Prior to that, you had to use or not use rather, it's a very wrong term. You had to take help from an analyst to go and pull out
Yeah.
those numbers, create dashboards and reports. But generative AI is definitely something which is changing the entire ecosystem, right?
Yeah.
And I'm glad that you think of the same thing, being a marketing leader in the space. Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah, no, and the natural language component of it, that's going to be, again, apparently accessibility is the word of the day for me, but it's going to make it, to your point, instead of, I don't have to learn how to query, reports and
Exactly.
create dashboards and all this kind of stuff. I can just, through natural language, ask, feed it this raw data and ask it what I want to know, and have some, a greater, not necessarily a greater degree of confidence in the result, but you always know when you're asking another human that, the data is only garbage in, garbage out, and so you don't
Exactly.
ever have like 100% certainty, but I think that's going to be incredibly game changing because of the fact that the natural language component and the ability to query things in natural language, and not even have to go through the multiple steps that you normally have to do to go from the raw
Exactly.
data to the insight.
Yeah.
That's going to be a huge time saver and huge efficiency, but then it also allows those insights to be accessible from lots of different seats. And so then you have people in compliance, or you have people in marketing, or you have people in HR. If they have the ability to analyze, the same set of data from their own vantage point for their own purposes, then you'll have a really smart organization.
Absolutely. I mean, this democratizes the way of using data. Earlier, data was a prized possession where only analysts could go and write complex queries and give you dashboards and insights. But now I think it is getting democratized. If not now, in the next 3 to 4 years, I think I call it in this way: every person will be a citizen data scientist, because you'll be able to go and access data the way you want by typing in prompts and queries, and not wait to be tech savvy, quote
Yeah.
unquote, to understand and make sense from data. But yeah, this is really, I would say, encouraging. I mean, me practicing AI for 10 years, I can say definitely there's a paradigm shift that has happened from the
Yeah.
time we were writing Python codes, doing NLP, to now generative AI after 8 years. This is a shift which I never expected it will happen, but it happened much quicker than expected.
Yeah.
Right? Cool. So, a lot of geeky things, right? Let's take it light now.
If
in the
you say
interest
so.
of, yeah, in the interest of my audience, sorry, both of us geek out at times, but we won't geek out now. So let's keep it
Yeah,
light and
we'll bring it up. We'll lighten the mood a little bit. I
we'll
like
bring it
that.
up. Exactly. Let's talk about our journey, right?
Okay.
So, so Lindsay, how do you explain your journey? So I mean, you're hardly 35, right? 35,
Mhm.
36. So you've been a CMO by 36 for a community bank is just not normal, right? This young CMO I've never seen, right? Honestly. So how has been your journey throughout? I mean, after your college, what are the different things you've done, and what has got you to this point?
Sure, sure. Well, um, I'll start at college because I actually got a degree, a business degree, but with a focus in entrepreneurship and venture management. And I always like to say I'm a classically trained entrepreneur. I never started a business, but I did study it. And I believe very, very strongly in entrepreneurship education because my ability to be a good marketer, it has always been kind of built on this foundation of I understand the business I'm in. And I understand my boss, my CEO or my president or whoever my boss is, I can see his picture a little bit and like obviously his or her. But but obviously I don't have the full picture or whatever, but I can speak that language of business a little bit. And that has been very advantageous to me over the course of my career, especially in marketing where I think speaking the language of executive business or executives is not something that a lot of marketers know how to do, and a lot of times that can kind of put us in a JV sort of junior varsity position amongst the functions instead of being truly embraced as a strategic partner to the business. And so I think that my entrepreneurship education is something that I would always tell people and have told people that if you want to have a great career in marketing, go get an entrepreneurship degree because then you will understand business and then you'll be more effective at marketing, and then you can kind of, do a course to learn how to do digital marketing or social media or something like that, because those are the channels, but the business being at the center is really the focus of it. But I kind of tripped and fell into a marketing project manager position at a local regional bank here in Oklahoma, and learned. I started at a bigger bank, and then I progressively went smaller and smaller, and then have since jumped up at a mid-sized institution that Stride is. But I spent 5 years at a bank that is about 10 billion in assets, and so a little bit more corporate and whatnot. And I learned how to be a professional first and foremost, and learned how the well-oiled machine works when it works. And I had a really fantastic boss named Diane Sizemore, and she got called by a recruiter for a marketing director position. And she was, kind of eyeballing retirement. She had been at that institution for over 30 years. She wasn't going anywhere. And she called me into her office one day and she said, "I think you could do this job." And so she gave me not only my big break because she hired me for the project manager job that I was not qualified for, but then she, after 5 years of working with her, she kind of provided the opportunity to elevate me to my next step. So I still like everything that has come of my career started with Diane Sizemore. So thanks, Diane. I'll tag you in the comments. But yeah, then I went into a marketing director role, and I just kind of learned on the job. It had a really good team, a leadership team that was supportive, and it was a growing institution, and so we were all kind of just trying things out and figuring things out, and that's where I learned that I really enjoyed growth stage businesses because you and I were talking about before, like I like building the machine. Yeah. I don't want to really like drive the race car, like I want to build it. And so that was a really great learning experience there. And then from that I went to a one branch community bank, wore a bunch of hats that I hadn't had the opportunity previously to wear, and got exposure to a lot of different areas of the bank and just enough knowledge to be dangerous, and then all of those things kind of stacked together and then prepared me for my role at Stride, and it has been awesome and a weird match made in heaven because we do really non-traditional marketing because of the element of our fintech partnerships and all this kind of stuff, and it's a fun and exciting challenge, and I love the people that I work with because they approach things just like me, that they go, bring it on, I'm ready to solve a new problem. And so that's kind of been the story of my journey. But it's always been about surrounding yourself with good people, making sure, and some of the mistakes I've made along the way is making sure that that the organization you're going into has a need for someone like you. And kind of that starts with like knowing who you are, knowing what you bring, knowing what you're not. I'm not a brand marketer. I'm not a traditional marketer. And so I kind of learned over time to go, if you want a brand marketer, if you want somebody that's great at social media, like I'm not for you. They're much more proficient professionals in that area, but I am a growth marketer. I am all about data and innovation and relationships and building unique bespoke solutions to really unique business problems. Mm-hmm. And if that's what you need, then we should talk. But I think those are some of the things I've learned. But the fact that I've always had good people around me and people that have been willing to let me be in the room and just listen and learn, that has been critical for sure.
I think for my audience, right? I mean, let me just tell everyone the reason because of which we both are friends, because there's one common concept. I think that we are, if you ask me, we are like square pegs in a round hole, right? I mean, yeah. We hate status quo. I mean, we are not that a person who wants to go and, run a machinery, but build a machinery. The way how Lindsey has built marketing for Stride throughout her career, build marketing functions across community FIs. I mean, similarly, I'm building analytics consulting practice only for community FIs here in EXL for the first time we are doing it, right? But that's a common thread that keeps both of us awake, and we meet and just talk about what are the different things that needs to be done, and how do we hate things that are slow going, status quo. So that's great, right?
Not the most relaxed friendship, probably.
Exactly. There's a natural fitment to it. I mean, we don't need to pretend. When we are together, we just talk like friends. That's all.
That's right.
Doesn't really matter. Cool. I'll ask you one, run-of-the-mill question, but still it's important, right? So, okay. What is leadership to you? Because you've been leading teams forever, and specifically you being a female leader, right? So, what are the nuances of being a female leader, and what are your learnings throughout the journey, and if any challenges that you faced?
Yeah, I think to me leadership is about having the courage to stick your neck out. That's what I have seen. My best leaders that I've followed, they're the ones that, because they take responsibility for the results and the buck stops with them, and they're willing to kind of have that bravery to stand up and be the shield, and also be an open sounding board and those types of things. But I think that's what creates a safe environment, is whenever a leader is somebody that challenges you and wants you to grow and wants you to develop, and has a higher view of you than you have of yourself, even at that time. And Diane's a great example of that. And I've been fortunate to have many of them. But somebody that sees greatness in you that you haven't even fully identified for yourself, and then holds you accountable to that and pushes you a little bit, but then supports you and protects you. I think that to me, that is kind of the ideal definition of leadership. And then I think, part of that that's kind of wrapped all around it is self-awareness. You have to know your own stuff. You have to know your own weaknesses. You have to know and be able to self-reflect as a leader, because dealing with different personalities and dealing with different situations, whether it's whatever direction it is in the organization, you have to be a very self-aware person, and you have to know what you're contributing to things. And I think a lot of potentially great leaders get caught on the the self-awareness piece. And so and I've been one of them for sure. I've learned that by experience, but as I've grown up in my career a little bit and grown up in leadership, I've realized that one of the best qualities that I can have as a leader is not necessarily knowing everything and not necessarily taking all the accountability or whatever, but it is just being aware of what environment I'm helping create and contribute to, and just trying to do better every day, being humble and listening.
That sounds perfect. Now, if I were to ask you to look back 5 years or 7 years, right, from now, so how will you advise a women leader, right, maybe in a mid-20s or maybe early 30s, right, to go and pursue whatever she wants to do and still reach to a leadership level pretty quick in career and not wait till being 50s, right? So what are your 2 cents for it?
My recommendation always, male, female, but especially in the female arena, is that when you're in early parts of your career, you get hung up on compensation, you get hung up on job title, you get hung up on company that you're working at and brand status and stuff like this. But I always tell people, choose your first boss really wisely. Because if you have a good first boss and you give that boss 3 to 5 years of loyalty and effort and coachability, and they are willing to pour into you and they are willing to open doors to you and let you listen and sit in the room and take in kind of what they do, then you will expedite your abilities and your competencies 3x. And that's, I had, and not just Diane, but I had other leaders at my first financial institution that I worked at that just let me sit in the room as somebody in my early 20s, and I would sit in a C-level conversation. And it was very clear I was not to speak, but I got to sit and listen to how those meetings take place and how these people think about these types of things. And then whenever I stepped into a my first director level role, then all of a sudden I was familiar with the conversations and had something to contribute and participate. And I actually spoke to another woman that was in leadership at one of my organizations, and I mentioned that early experience of just letting people sit in the room, letting people witness it, and she said that she also had a boss that let her go into the board meetings and sit and observe the board meetings. And so I said, I think there's something really important about that that maybe is being missed. So my best advice is choose your first boss. Don't get swayed by title. Comp is obviously important to live life and all these kinds of things, but if you have the opportunity to work for a really good boss that is a good leader and is also very knowledgeable and respected in their field, that's the option I would take. I think that would pay off over the long term way more than a cash grab early on.
Absolutely. I mean, I owe obviously whatever little I've done, right, I owe to my first boss. Absolutely. There was someone called Abhishek Banerjee back in India. He was a partner at Accenture. He somehow trusted that I'll be able to do analytics, right? I was software developing, so from being a software developer to being a management consultant, that was a huge shift. And he enabled me. He just trusted me and he just hired me. Okay, Anurag, I trust you. Why don't you start doing it? And I've been doing analytics for the last 8 years right now, and I thank him every single day of my life. But because of you trusted me, I'm doing this job right now. And this is really an advice, Lindsey, that even I would want to pass on to every, I would say, young leaders who want to take up leadership roles. That choose your first boss is very important. The amount of learning that you have from that, it doesn't matter even if you get paid a penny or two less, right? But that learning is invaluable. I mean, if you ask me, even in the current situation, right? Why am I at EXL? Because of my boss. I mean, I can go publicly on air and tell, yes, it's because of Vikas Sharma, my boss.
Yeah.
He gives me the headroom to go experiment, to go do things that I excel in. I do things that I like doing, right? Without that, it's almost impossible to go and continue. But yes, this is very inspiring, Lindsey. Your journey is something which people should listen to. I'm very sure you'll be a TEDx speaker soon. If not now, I'll start a TEDx and I'll call you. Right? That's very
If
important.
you'll just do all the legwork for me, I'll come up and do the
I
tap
can.
dance.
Yeah, exactly. You just pay me some commission. That's all. That's sidebar.
I love it.
Yes, cool. I won't keep it wait. I mean, not keep it too long, but I would want to end this podcast with one question, debatable question. Both of us debate all the time. Similarly, uh, where do you think is the CFI industry moving? Where do you think the community financial institutions moving out? Right. Definitely, there are mergers and acquisitions that are happening across the board, right? And M&As will happen throughout.
Yep.
CFIs will be acquired or acquired, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's stiff competition from the Wall Street banks, from the neo banks, challenger banks, or the fintechs, right?
Mm-hmm.
But still, being a strong proponent of CFIs for both of us, right?
Mm-hmm.
How do you think community bank industry is changing, evolving, and how does the next 5 years look like for this space?
Sure. I mean, it's who knows. Number one, it's been changing so quickly that that it's really hard to look into the crystal ball, especially with the advancements in AI and how that's all going to play out, and who's going to grab hold of that. But my bold prediction, because like you, I'm an advocate of community banking. I think community banking serves in a way that our country needs and that our communities need. I understand the draw to the mega banks, and I understand Wall Street, and I understand they're great for our ecosystem as well in a lot of ways, and they have certain value propositions and differentiators that they add to the space. But community banks still, even in a digital world, have a different heart, I think. And I think that is increasingly important. And even as we look at like Gen Z and Gen Alpha and kind of this turn back towards business with heart and away from kind of this more machinistic type of business and organization that but I think that means that community banks will survive through this, but they are going to have to either embrace digital innovation and make the investments in the talent and the technology and get up to speed to be able to deliver on the expectations of customers banking in a digital world, or they're going to have to be open to partnerships in the fintech space and kind of go, okay, you guys, and that's Stride's position is that we are the bank, we are the banking experts, we are conservative and compliant and stable, and we have the risk professionals, and we have the regulatory professionals, and we have the operations professionals, and we'll let you be the front end, and we'll let you be the product developers and the UX designers and all of that, and the marketers in a lot of ways, and partnering with them so that we can grow together faster than we could do it if we all tried to do it on our own. So community financial institutions are going to have to evolve, and they're going to have to not just deal with their legacy systems that are currently hindering them, but they're going to have to deal with legacy culture that is also hindering them, and be open to the fact that we're going to need to make a transition into a different posture in the space, and it can't just be geographically motivated, I should say, and just go, well, if our bank is here and our teller line is here and our customers are here, then we are the bank of community here. We have to be able to open our minds a little bit to operating in a digital space and building different types of communities, and maybe even rethinking what our definition of community is. And I think that's what the neobanks are kind of teaching community banks, is that they're going, hey, a community can be a certain segment of the population. A community can be, an industry. It does not necessarily just have a geographical bound around it. And so I think, the next 5 years are going to be interesting. I think we're going to see an intense talent war uh, for people, from the larger institutions, from fintech, from banking to fintech. I think everybody's going to be fighting for talent, and then I also think that everybody's going to be trying to deal with how to make the decisions about technology and which road to go down when there isn't a monopoly yet. Because it's kind of like every business that starts knows that you use Microsoft because they have the monopoly on everything. But when you have OpenAI and you have Microsoft's AI and you have Google's AI, and then which one do you do? Which one do you invest in? How are they going to speak to each other? All that kind of stuff. I think that'll be a really interesting thing to see community financial institutions grapple with. But it's going to be an interesting time, and it's going to be a fast pace, and the community institutions that are not able to evolve and adapt to that faster pace and get talent on board that's comfortable with that, and kind of have that more innovative mindset and more forward-thinking mindset, that I think we'll see more M&A activity and stuff like that around the others. But it'll be an interesting ride, and it does feel a little bit like, in the community banking space that, we're fighting for our lives in this technological revolution, but we're fighting for the heart of community banking. And so that's what, something that motivates me to stay in the community banking space and to make sure that, at least the bank I'm working at is going to make it over the hump, because then, we can rebuild civilization from there.
I agree, absolutely. So, same, right? A few days back, I met a community bank in New York. Same line of thought. So there's this gentleman called Steve Hamilton from Ponce Bank in New York. They are launching a digital bank in a few months. Again, that same concept of think globally but do locally. Yes, the ethos of community banks is go and serve customers or members if you're a credit union locally. But yes, the way how you go and serve these customers is the key. They have to entice someone like Anurag or Lindsey to go and open a checking account while competing with the Betterment or one of their peers, right?
Yeah.
So I think that it's not easy, but yes, with all the good people in it, all the good forces in it, I think community bank is here to stay, and it's definitely the backbone of this country, right? Without community bank, people won't have mortgages, people won't have auto loans being sanctioned that easily.
Small businesses.
Small businesses, exactly. Not only on the consumer side, specifically that's for credit unions, but for community banks, the amount of support that small business SBA lending happens, right? If I want to go and start my own bagel store or maybe own smoke shop out in New York, right? Community banks are keys to lending money to people like me and you, or even consumers with less credit scores, credit history, because it's a trust that the community financial institution movement brings in. A consumer cannot be just treated basis your past history on credit score. There are a bunch of other things that you go and look into, and I think this movement is there to stay. And I'm confident that we will come out even more stronger. Even if there are M&As happening, even more stronger we will come out. And let's not talk about competing with Wall Street banks. They have a different agenda. We have a different agenda altogether. But yes, as a whole, I'm very confident, and I know both of us share the same feeling. But yes, Lindsey, thanks a lot for your time today. I appreciate this. Thank you.
Hey, thanks for having me. It was awesome. It was a blast.
Thank you. Bye-bye.